Good evening, and welcome everyone to Wednesday evening teaching, the series of what I call experiencing the Buddha's teachings. And today I'm starting a new module called Navigating the Highs and Lows of Our Life. Good evening, great. So you're most welcome since I'm live streaming, to post your comments or questions or feedback on the live chats, and I will attend to them. It's a good way to have some interactions. Although I was joking recently of my, I'm amazed at my incredible ability to keep talking. Right? So tonight, this evening, I will be talking. At the end of this class, I would have been talking more or less, not continuously, but for 2.5 hours, just facing a camera. You never know your own potential until you give it a try. With this new topic called Navigating the Highs and Lows of Our Life, I have kind of arrived at, I covered various topics previously, and now I'm at the point where we are having a kind of a summary of what I have covered so far, and we are actually looking at what the benefits that can come out of reflecting, meditating on the topics that I've covered in this series so far. So at the beginning of today's session, I want to just give a brief review. So those of you who have been following this class, this will be an opportunity to remind yourself of what you might have heard. And if you are new and you just join in, and then this will give you a little bit of background. And I think the sessions are all posted online on YouTube. And if you are interested, especially if something I mentioned intrigued you, you might want to look for that particular session or video and to listen to them. Yeah. So in this series of experiencing the Buddha's teaching, I have been slowly touching on different topics within Buddhism, and really emphasizing how we can, through learning, reflecting, meditating, try to integrate some of these ideas and informations, and so integrate them with our life experiences, and so that we can transform it into, instead of it remaining as information from someone else, from a different source, outer source, we can see if we can translate that into some kind of our own understanding and insight in such a way that we actually gain some benefit from it. We are able to catalyze some positive changes within ourselves in our own experience. So I have sort of covered a few common topic. So I just want to sort of touch on them. Among the topics I covered, I have touched on appreciating our precious human life, which is, drawing our attention, asking us to really pause and take a look and really appreciate how wonderful our life, the wonderful aspects of our life. Of course, our life is not every moment of it is wonderful. It's probably filled with a lot of also other challenges and difficult feelings, experiences, pain, and so on and so forth. But when we adopt a perspective, looking at our life from a certain perspective, we might come to appreciate it as something unique, unrepeatable, and also that our life, from a certain point of view, is suffused with wonderful qualities, experiences, personal experiences, and good evening, Jennifer. And also that we also enjoy certain degree of freedom. Of course, it varies from one person to another depending on our personal circumstances, and that we are endowed with certain opportunities. And so the whole idea is to be able to have a kind of appreciation, a very positive regard towards our own life, be it the past, the present, and also to be hopeful towards the future. So this is one topic I have touched on, appreciating our precious human life. And immediately following on that is this is a very typical Buddhist topic, awareness of death. So although we have such a wonderful, precious opportunity of this human life, it's also very important to be aware and not to deny the reality that this life is finite. It's not going to last forever and ever. At the end of it, there will be death. Our life comes to an end. And in fact, we also uncertain as to when the end, when that is going to happen, right? So awareness of death heighten the preciousness of life itself, and give us a different kind of appreciation. In fact, maybe imparted with a sense of urgency to make really good use of this life. And if there's something we want to do with it, something we want to accomplish through our own life, then it's not something we should infinitely postpone or procrastinate about it. So there is awareness of death. And we also touch on finding protection in refuge, which is to identify the worthy or trustworthy objects of refuge in our life, things or people or whatever it might be, that we can rely on, that we can find support in, which enable us to do the important things that we want to do with our life. These are genuine support for us, in particular for us to find happiness and to find freedom from suffering. So refuge is the next topic. We can think of objects of refuge in the Buddhist sense, relying on the Buddha, the teacher, relying on what we call Dharma, which is the teachings, the truth of reality, and the Sangha, the community, of like-minded people, fellow practitioners who support us in our journey, our spiritual journey. So that is the refuge. And the last topic that I just covered will be on karma, on actions. We don't have to use the funny word karma. We can just call it actions. And the main insight we take away from reflecting and thinking about the Buddha's teaching of action is that our actions are very powerful. Our actions have consequences, which is really common sense, because that's why we act, because we know it brings about certain results. And to not forget that, so we have the power of actions in a forward-looking way, by creating the appropriate actions, by taking the appropriate actions, making the wise choices, we can create a future for ourselves, whatever it is that we are aspiring towards. So we put these four together, appreciating a precious human life, deep awareness of its impermanence nature, of death itself, and to be aware that we are not alone, that we are supported, we have objects of refuge, and that our actions, our choices are very powerful in helping us to forge a different future for ourselves. So these four topics together bring us to a point where we can really seriously consider, what is it that we can do to bring about happiness for ourselves, genuine happiness, and what might be some of the pitfall or traps along the way that might distract us from such a worthy endeavor, and that we get us caught up in false promises. Sometimes I call them the false gods, the deceiving, deceptive gods of happiness, which we worship. These are what we think might bring me happiness, and yet turn out to be not true. And so we wasted a lot of time, a lot of energy investing in unreliable sources of happiness. And that's really what I want to touch on, by helping us to identify the true sources of happiness. And help us to find that confidence within ourselves, and how to go about achieving it. Is really a kind of a way of understanding how these four topics work together, and it's sort of like a conclusion, so to speak. This whole series follow a particular way of presenting the Buddha's teaching in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. It's called Lamrim in Tibetan, stages of the path to enlightenment. And usually it's divided into three main sections: the small scope, the medium scope, and the great scope. The scope is, you can think of it as scope of aspiration, a scope of attainment. So in the small scope, we aspire in a small way, just to be happy. In the medium scope, we want to be well and truly happy. And in the great scope, not just ourselves, but we want everybody to be well and truly happy. Yeah, I'm just very briefly just touch on it. I'm not going into much details, but let's focus on the small scope. Yeah, and it's very simple. It's about happiness. I actually think of the Buddha's teaching as really about happiness, or what the Buddha preferred to call it, freedom from suffering. And he has ever described the path that he is presenting and he wants to share with everyone as a path that goes from happiness to happiness. I thought that was such a wonderful marketing slogan, isn't it? Going from happiness to happiness, not like unlike this, like, no pain, no gain. It's like telling you must first suffer, then you are allowed to be happy. Oh no, Buddha said, go from. He's not guaranteed that we're always definitely happy, but we can envision the path, the spiritual path, as one from finding small happiness to greater happiness to finally ultimate happiness. And I thought it was so attractive, and this makes so much sense. Isn't it wonderful if we can find a way to do that? And so let's start with the so-called small happiness. Yeah, the happiness of this life, the happiness of future lives in the Buddhist cosmology. But and maybe even without thinking about this life or future lives, the happiness of this moment and the happiness of the next moment. So, and this is presented in, traditionally they have a phrase to describe this. And it's a phrase that I think is very easy to misunderstand. And it's a phrase that I want to sort of elaborate. When I was studying, and I'm still studying Tibetan Buddhism, the Tibetan Lamas would quite often, when we talk about the small scope of stages of the path to enlightenment, they like to use this expression about the small scope is about giving up our concerns for this life. Giving up the concern for this life sounds terrible, isn't it? I thought, what? Concerns for this life? I have to give it up? That means what? Stop eating, stop cleaning, stop looking after myself. I might as well just die, and wait for and then go straight to the next life. Yeah. Actually, that's not what it means. Yeah. So, what is this concerns for this life? Why do we need to give it up? And the idea is, I will elaborate, but by giving up these false concerns for this life, it enables us to achieve or touch greater happiness. And of course, greater happiness of the future, but also greater happiness in this moment. And this, I thought, this sounds more reasonable. The give up concern for this life otherwise sounds a bit shocking. Yeah. And what are these concerns of this life that we are advised to give up? These are sometimes called the 8 worldly concerns, the 8 things that the world in general are preoccupied with, and that have so much power over us that, and just depending on what we experience, it has incredible power to make us feel very excited or plunge us deep into depression. Yeah. So these 8 worldly concerns come in 4 pairs. I have to try to remember them because even though they're quite simple, but sometimes there's the mind may just go blank. First pair is pleasure and pain, right? Pleasure and pain. So they are like this. The second pair is gain and loss. You gain something, it doesn't matter material or otherwise, and we lose certain things. Yeah, gain and loss. The third one is praise and blame or criticism. Praise is nice sounding words. Blame and criticism will sound very harsh to us. Yeah. And the last one is fame and bad reputation. And I tend to interpret this one. Famous just means that many people hold good opinions of us. So have well regard, regard us in a positive way. And likewise, the opposite is when they hold very negative regard towards us. They hold us, they have really poor opinion of us. Yeah. That is really what fame or bad reputation really is. Boil down to others' opinions of us. Yeah. So this four pair, pleasure and pain, gain and loss, praise and blame, and fame and bad reputation or ill repute, as sometimes people translate. These four pairs of experiences that we encounter in our life has tremendous power that affect our experience of happiness or suffering. And also, by becoming entangled in these these 8 worldly concerns, we might spend all our time and energy trying to, usually what most people do is trying to secure 4 of them, the pleasure, the gain, the praise, the fame, and really put all our energy and time into avoiding the other 4, the pain, the loss, the criticism or blame, and others' poor opinions or disregard of us. And it's like, and we will regard this as the way to be happy. And the teaching is saying these are false promises. But for various reasons, this is not a good strategy to find happiness, fulfillment, and contentment. Trying to control what we really can't control, the 8 worldly concerns. Sometimes compared to the 8 winds of worldly concern, like things that blow us here and there, left and right. And because in spite of our best efforts, in spite of consuming all our time and energy, these 8 things come and go and changes, and this sometimes despite our best effort, we can go from being famous to being forgotten by people. Maybe that is even worse than having a bad reputation. As they say, all forms of publicity are good publicity, even bad press is good. And so I suppose the worst thing is for people to completely ignore us and forget about us. Yeah, that might be a even more painful fall from grace. Yeah, and there is some truth in it if we think about it. Because we do get caught up in this 8 sets of experiences. We develop strong attachment to the 4, what we perceive as positive experiences, and we can develop strong aversion to the 4 that we perceive as very negative experiences. Take for example, pain. Sometimes some of us may develop such a great aversion or fear towards pain. We find pain of any sort so overwhelming, so unbearable, that we might devote all our energy into avoiding painful, unpleasant experiences. And so in the world, there are the various examples. One example, of course, is the one that I really relate to is what we call shut in. There's a Japanese term for it, but I keep forgetting. Where people just shut themselves in their room and don't go out. Yeah. So cut off from the actual physical contact with the world. Because physical contact with people, with situations, with work or transport, so overwhelming, and there's this great aversion or tiredness. Don't want to deal with it. Much rather to because these days we have internet. We contact the world through the virtual reality of the internet, and we feel so much safer because we have more control. Of course, absolute control. We can just switch off the computer, and then the world is shut out of our tiny little room, isn't it? And so that kind of phenomena can be viewed as a manifestation, or an extreme manifestation, of trying to control the 8 worldly concerns, trying to avoid or to push out, to keep out painful experiences, unpleasant experiences. Well, then there's also the one of trying to secure pleasure, pleasant experiences, which we can see as, I wouldn't say the only, but one of the reasons we develop all sorts of different addiction, substance abuse, trying to. The dentist, what is Craig talking about? A dentist, yes, of course, pain, right? And then is a toss-up between which one is more painful when we talk about visiting the dentist. For some people, seeing the dentist or being in the dentist chair is a torture worse than death itself. And then, of course, then you have to weigh up against the pain of a toothache. So which one is worse? Which is the lesser of the two evils that I can live with? And this is something very common, isn't it? We can fully relate to this kind of experiences and reactions. And what happens is, if we believe that true happiness comes from attaining absolute control over our experiences, in achieving the 4 so-called positives of the 8 worldly concerns, and completely avoid the 4 negative ones. And this, I think, is not uncommon for people to interpret what it means by happiness and suffering, and therefore make this their central pursuit. This is what we put our time and energy in. But according to the Buddhist teaching, and we can think about this is something we need to reflect on. I sometimes think, I would like to tell people, don't believe everything that is the Buddha says, especially these days on Facebook and social media. Most of the things that people say that came from the Buddha, I'm quite sure the Buddha never said anything like that. Avoiding Married at First Sight TV show. Well, yeah. I don't mean that you mustn't do that. Okay, if you really don't like the show, you feel free to avoid it. But just don't think that this strategy of trying to control our encounter with the 8 worldly concerns as the path to true happiness, because we are doomed to fail. We're doomed to be disappointed. And even when we achieve certain degree of control, we might be paying a huge price for that. So a lot of the substance abuse start off very innocent, maybe because of we experience certain pleasure, which is very gratifying, and maybe it's a great relief from the pain and the unpleasantness of life. And so it starts off something very small, and then eventually, as the use become more frequent, we develop dependency. I sometimes think of it start off as looking for pleasure, and you end up trying to escape from the pain of craving. We are literally driven by the unpleasantness and the pain of craving to continue with the addiction. So it starts off as an attempt to gain control over life experiences for our own happiness, and end up a complete loss of control over everything, over the many different aspects of our life, of our own choices and actions. So I would say that the 8 worldly concerns are false promises, and we might associate them with happiness, true happiness, genuine happiness, but that might not be true. And And this is what the Buddha's teaching is saying. And I invite you to don't just believe it, but it's good to check it out, examine it again and again. And maybe now you agree, you believe in it, but years later down the road, when there's any doubt, you are not sure, you try to follow the Buddha's teaching and you don't feel happier, you feel dissatisfied, or life is full of challenges, things seem to be worse. Then when there's doubts, please feel free to re-examine again, re-evaluate again, come back and take another look at the Buddha's teaching and double check, have I misunderstood it, or is it the Buddha's teaching are also mistaken? So there is a Buddhist teacher that say that truth does not fear re-evaluation. I mean, if it's true, right? If it's fact, it's a fact. Doesn't matter how many times you look at it, it should become clearer and clearer. From the point of view of truth itself, it does not fear re-evaluation. It's not like, oh, you can only evaluate once. After that, you must never, ever check it again. Why should you fear? If it's true, the next time you check it, it will still be true. So therefore, with a teaching on explanation like this, it bears repeated scrutiny, to come back again and again and to really check for ourselves, is this true? Do I agree with it? And if I put it into practice, is there any other evidence to confirm its truthfulness? Yeah. So what I'm saying is, we are learning in the small scope to overcome and put aside our usual, very natural kind of preoccupation with these 8 worldly concerns, to put aside the view holding that this is the true source of happiness for us, and to maybe reevaluate and see things a bit differently. Too much control could cut out remedies that come to us intuitively. Control is an interesting topic. I probably can talk on and on about it. A lot of our modern life, a lot of time we strive for greater and greater degree of control over our experiences. I think of it as futile because eventually we encounter aspects of our life that is beyond our control. And then we might find it difficult to navigate, if we have only one strategy, which is to control everything, then that would fail us miserably when we confronted aspects of our lives or experiences that we can't control. So I think a safer strategy is to be comfortable with both. We're comfortable with situations where we do able to exercise a degree of influence and control, and also to be able to deal with situations where we have no control over it, and to be comfortable with them, and among which, of course, to be comfortable with intuition. Sometimes things just come to us out of nowhere, creativity, but to experience that we need to let go of a certain degree of control. All right, so before I rambling on, I better make sure I touch on the important point. But I hope that gives you a context of what we are trying to cover in this particular module, navigating the highs and lows of our life. How can we find a different way to relate to these 4 pairs of worldly concerns, experiences, in such a way that it becomes something that promotes our genuine happiness, our experience of contentment and fulfillment, instead of becoming yet another false promises that deceive us, that will not deliver genuine happiness at the end of it. Yeah. So that is what we're going to touch on. Today I want to maybe explore the first pair of pleasure and pain, and also link that up with how the topics I've covered appreciating a precious human life, and so on until karma, how that can come in to support us and help us work with pleasure and pain, and how we can discern another way forward to happiness. Maybe we can think a little bit this question of is pleasure equal happiness? So is the way forward to be truly happy, is it to accumulate, to have as much pleasure as possible? Or conversely, does it mean to avoid pain as much as possible? A life of absolute no pain, only that qualified as genuine happiness. Is that true? Or maybe what we call happiness is related but not limited to pleasure and pain. It's related to our experiences, our pleasant experiences, unpleasant experiences, but not limited to that. So we can be happy when we have pleasant experiences, which is always nice to know. But we can also be happy or contented or at ease, even if we encounter unpleasant experiences. And of course, there is a third category, which we normally don't talk about, which is the neutral experiences, experiences that we wouldn't call them pleasant or unpleasant. Right? And so that we can somehow find ease and peace and happiness, regardless of what is our dominant experiences in this moment, be it pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Wouldn't that be nice? I thought that was for me that sounds much more attractive, because in my mind, my pessimist mind, I thought, I think there is a good contingency plan to have. Of course, I would rather have more pleasures, but it's always good to have a few contingency plans just in case that didn't work. Worst case scenario, so called. If I can have pleasure, that's wonderful. But if I can't, then faced with unpleasant experiences, I also would like to have some way to be happy and to be at ease. And then, and the majority of moments of life, which is neither pleasant nor unpleasant, maybe I won't find them suffering. But even better if I can still regard it as happiness. That would be a wonderful strategy forward, coming from my pessimist mind. Yeah. And I thought that is much more doable than the one that we might instinctively or society might in some way or another encourage, which is the one of maximizing pleasures, really maximizing, like every single moment if possible, and greatly minimizing pain. Yeah. Okay, so how could we work with pleasure and pain? Actually, the main thing we work with is our reactions to pleasure and pain. Towards pleasure, we have an instinctive reaction, what we call craving in Buddhism. We cling, we hold on to. The clinging, the craving, the holding, the wanting in a kind of much more intense form, is really the source of the problem. Likewise, towards pain or unpleasant experiences, we have the opposite. We also have an instinctive reaction, which is, you can call it aversion, you can call it fear, can manifest as avoidance, withdrawal, rejection. So, and this is the two extreme we find ourselves yo-yo in between. Clinging, holding, craving for pleasure, and having aversion, fear, withdrawal towards unpleasant experience, towards pain. And in between, our life flow. Not a happy life, because it's really a life in which we have almost like no stability, no balance, depending on what happened to us, what arises, whether we like it or not, and then up and down we go. This is especially significant, and maybe in meditation, in the context of meditation, we can see clearer. Like for example, meditating, I might one particular session have a really nice experience, something really blissful, pleasant, interesting happened to me in my meditation. And what happened to the mind? The mind reach out and crave and grasp and cling. I want this. And in fact, sometimes it manifests in such a dramatic way that while I'm still, while the meditation is still continuing, immediately a thought popped into my mind. How can I get this back in my next session? You know what my mind is doing? I have not even finished this session. Already reached into the future and worried about getting it back in the next session. The bliss has not even faded from awareness, and I'm already jumping ahead. I'm no longer with the bliss in this moment. I'm jumping ahead, to worry about, to try to secure the bliss of the next session. And that's what craving does to our mind. The craving for pleasure that seems to enhance our happiness actually destroy our happiness. That craving mind that I just described prevent me from first enjoying this session because I'm not here. My attention is not here with the bliss. I'm not even attending to the bliss. I'm not even soaking it in and be comfortable and just be with it. I'm not. My attention is gone. I'm worrying about the future. How do I get it back? How can I increase it? And that is not enjoyable. That is almost like, that is a much more agitated state of mind. Yeah. So that is one way you can think of how, in meditation context, how craving for pleasure is not really a source of happiness and contentment and fulfillment. Another thing we can observe in meditation is pain. Right? Sometimes, of course, I usually try to tell people, try to avoid unnecessary pain. Don't put yourself in a situation or posture that inflict unnecessary pain on yourself. But sometimes, inevitably, discomfort arises, not necessarily due to our fault, but due to various conditions coming together. The shoulders become really tight and tense and really painful for various reasons. And I encounter pain in meditation. Or other times might be more in terms of the mind. The mind might be really gone crazy, jumping here and there, thinking, getting upset, angry, and agitated, and not really doing what I would prefer it to do in meditation. And then I get upset with myself. I get upset with my own mind. I have aversion towards that experience that I encounter in my mind. I have aversion. I have intense dislike and frustration with my so-called monkey mind. Yeah. Very common reaction. And that frustration, that intense dislike and aversion is a kind of suffering, isn't it? It doesn't feel nice. I'm actually, not only am I angry at whatever it is I'm angry, I'm actually becoming angry at myself for experiencing anger in my meditation. And that, again, diminish my sense of happiness and increase my experience of unhappiness. In fact, through meditative practice, we learn that a better way forward really is to recognize and acknowledge, my attention is caught up in angry thoughts again. Yeah. And recently I got upset, I got angry. And my mind refused to just keep repeatedly going back into telling the angry stories. I notice it, I stop, I come back to the present moment. And the next instant, back again it goes. And it just for the whole day, it just keep repeating itself. And despite my best efforts, I have to acknowledge that, yes, I'm angry. I recognize that there's anger. I recognize that this is not helping the situation. Because a lot of those angry thoughts are just my own imaginations, my own projections onto the reality. And it is distorting everything. It's distort my perception. It's distort my way of reacting, responding. And instead of allowing that to fuel more anger, sometimes with mindfulness, I can't stop it immediately, but by recognizing acknowledging it, and by choosing not to nurture it. I mean, where possible, not to fuel the angry thoughts, by really going into it and really spending hours doing it. If I can help it, then at this moment, at least now, that one is temporarily over. It might be triggered again, And this approach of mindfulness, for me, it feels so much better. I feel so much happier. I don't feel upset with myself, and yet I'm able to help myself to step out of my angry reactivity. Yeah. In order to find and experience true happiness, don't we need to face our pain and suffering? Don't we need to embrace our pain and suffering and understand it, see where it's coming from? Okay, from worldly concern perspective, of course, and I think by worldly concern it means majority of us in the world, our instinctive reaction to pain and suffering, of course, is avoidance, rejection, aversion, or even fear, because we really don't like it. So we try to push it out, we try to get rid of it, we try to stop it immediately. We don't see it as something, we don't see any redeeming qualities to pain and sufferings. Let's put it that way, right? And so that is the entrenched reactions we have towards pain, just as craving for pleasure is our instinctive reaction. And this characterizes what we call worldly concerns and our most habituated way of reacting to them. Of course, through spiritual teachings, then we learn that there is something positive that can come out of our experiencing difficulties or our encounter with pain and suffering, that we can learn from them sometimes. Of course, we try to, where possible, not experience them or to diminish them. We don't want to intensify them for no good reason. But in spite of our best effort, we are not able to stop or avoid. And those pain and suffering that we are so bound to experience, then we can try to adopt a different attitude. As what is stated here by Jennifer, we can learn to face them. As well, I say through mindfulness, we can recognize what's happening to us. We can acknowledge, which is a very important step, acknowledge that, oh, yes, I'm in pain, I'm suffering. This feels really awful and really unpleasant. And then we can inquire. As what it says, inquire as to maybe what could be the causes and conditions, what could be my contribution, what am I doing wrongly or not doing that lead to such pain and suffering. Or another way we can inquire is, what else can I do that can free myself from the pain and suffering? So facing them. Embrace is a strong word. I mean, of course, people are welcome to express it in different way. I probably wouldn't use the word embrace, maybe because I'm not ready to embrace it. I can recognize it. All right, this is awful. I can acknowledge it. It's already here. No, what can I say? No, it's already here. I can inquire into it. I say, oh, what's happening here? What is fueling this suffering, this misery? Or what is my contribution towards it? And what is the other conditions, circumstances that might be leading to it? Yeah. So there are different verbs people use. Embrace. Some people say surrender. People say accept. So they are all useful words, and so long as we understand them correctly in a way that is meaningful to us, then we can transform our experience of pain and suffering into something beneficial and helpful, even though it might still felt and experienced as highly unpleasant. Yeah. Okay, so blah 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 on for quite a while. So let's on a practical note, let me elaborate a little bit on the practice of mindfulness and how we might be able to bring that into our encounter and our relationship with pleasure and pain, and see whether it can transform, help us find different ways to relate to pleasant experiences, pleasant things in our life, which, this teaching is not about getting rid of pleasure. Yeah? This teaching about learning to relate to them in a way that is healthy and positive and helpful, and how to relate to pain in a constructive way. So I find the practice of mindfulness very helpful. Help us to be free from our craving and attachment to pleasure, and help us to enter into a different relationship with pain instead of aversion, instead of fear, instead of denial, avoidance, withdrawal, or rejection. So the Buddha said, is it possible for us to not be consumed by pleasure and pain, consumed by our reaction of craving and aversion, to be a step out of that trap and find a different way to relate to them, one that actually is conducive to our experience of peace, to our experience of happiness. Although I use the word happiness, is defined a bit differently from just having pleasant experiences. So mindfulness, one way to apply it is to, in the context of in relation to this acronym, RAIN, RAIN, which I have been introducing it in the different classes. In this particular formulation of mindfulness, is particularly helpful to help us deal with difficult experiences we encounter. But likewise, we can also apply it to pleasant experiences. RAIN, R stands for recognize, calling a spade a spade. We recognize what is actually happening. We recognize pleasure as pleasure, pain as pain. Recognize the craving, wanting mind as the craving, wanting mind. Recognize our fear, our anger, our frustration as what they are. Recognize through paying attention. And knowledge is a much more difficult step. And knowledge is not about giving up hope. And knowledge is about be open to the reality of this moment and to be able to see what is here and acknowledge it as such. So if I'm in pain, I acknowledge that, gee, this is painful. No. Instead of what happens is when we don't acknowledge it. When we don't acknowledge it, we spend all our energy fighting it, running away from it, denying it. We do all sorts of maneuvers, basically what I'm trying to do is we're trying to reject reality. We are saying this reality of this moment is not good enough. I don't want it. Go away. Get lost. And so we think that we can do it by putting in what they call blinkers or whatever. We want to block it. We don't want to see it. We have been an ostrich. We stick our head into the sand, thinking that if I deny it strong enough, it might just go away and it will be different. But it doesn't work like this. Reality doesn't just go away for no good reason. It's much better to acknowledge the reality. Then we free up all this energy that we put in, and free up the energy to actually deal with the situation itself, the actual situation, instead of being caught up in all this busyness of trying to deny the reality, trying to reject reality. So acknowledge is just telling yourself, say, okay, when I'm in pain, I acknowledge, yes, this is painful. When I experience pleasure, I say, oh, I acknowledge this is pleasant. And in spite of the fact that it doesn't gel with my self-image, when I'm angry, I say, I know I'm a Buddhist teacher. I know I should be like this or should not be like that. I have all these high ideals and high standards. But the reality of this moment is I'm angry and I'm behaving quite badly. So I acknowledge that. That's what it means. Just simply acknowledge the reality of this moment. Right? The third one is called I, stands for to inquire. Here, inquire, in the case of mind work on mindfulness, is to do with attention, not so much to do with reflection, thinking, analyzing. Although we can most welcome to do that. Yeah. As far as mindfulness is concerned, to inquire is to pay closer attention, to discover with attention, to investigate something that we are unaware of, to see connection that we have missed, to uncover relationship that we didn't realize. Yeah. So, for example, we can inquire into the causes and conditions for certain experiences. We can inquire into the role that I play, my habits, my actions play in contributing to it, and the role or the importance played by other conditions and factors, circumstances. I can inquire into what is actually happening in that moment, to clarify the various different aspects of it. So inquire with attention. And the last one is to nurture with the energy of our attention. Attention is very powerful. It's actually energy. By giving my attention to a particular way of thinking, like when I'm angry, I'm feeding that angry reaction. So it gets stronger and stronger. And sometimes it gets so strong that, we might have encountered, or we ourselves may have the experience that maybe the event, the person, the situation is long gone, it's changed. Even the person may have passed on. And yet we still hold on to that anger. We still hold on to that pattern of thinking. Our perception of that situation is tightly held. And this is how powerful it is. By giving it repeated attention, we can solidify that, and that perception seems to be reality to us. And we 100% believe in it. And we're stuck with it. So with nurturing, we become skillful in how we pay attention and what we pay attention. How are we using the energy of our attention? If I decided that, yes, I'm angry, but I really don't want to keep getting angry, keep escalating the anger. It's really very unpleasant. It's not helpful. It complicates the interactions. And also it's highly distorted because I'm just making up stories, things that may have happened, which didn't happen actually. So I don't want to do this. I don't want to feed this kind of habits. So I can choose slowly, mindfully, again and again. I say, I'm going to take my attention, unplug it from my anger circuit, and plug it into something more helpful. If I can, I plug it into loving kindness. I try, might be difficult, to see the situation differently. Try to find kinder eyes to look upon the situation, to look upon myself and others. And if that's too hard, sometimes it's really difficult. I plug my energy or attention, at least I plug it into sensing the present moment. Come back to this present moment. I'm here alone in this hall. No one is around. What am I fuming about? The situation is not here. The person is not here. Can I just come back and be here and focus on what I need to do in this moment? So coming back to the present moment. So by applying these 4 different aspects of mindfulness, it can help us to find a different relationship to painful experiences in our life and also pleasant experiences. Pleasant experience is very interesting. As I said, craving actually interfere with our enjoyment of pleasure. So in meditation, these days, I've been encouraging people to welcome in anything pleasant that arises in meditation, to allow ourselves to enjoy those simple pleasures of our meditation, to build a positive association. So by saying that, I'm not saying we are nurturing craving or attachment. What I'm saying is we can, with mindfulness, nurture a genuine appreciation of pleasant experiences, nurture a simple enjoyment of simple pleasures in our life. Why not? They arise because of certain conditions, maybe because of what I'm doing in meditation, they arise and they're part of my meditation. They're already here. I recognize them. I acknowledge them. I might inquire and say, oh, I must be doing something right this time around. So that I can nurture enjoyment of that pleasure. I can allow myself to enjoy instead of reaching forward into the future, trying to secure it, trying to increase it. Forget about that. Just come back and just to be with the pleasure while it's still here and allow myself to soak into it, enjoy it. Allow it to work is wonderful magic on my body, on myself, helping my whole system to start to calm down, start to feel safer, and therefore more willing to release all those agitations, all those tension, all those anxiety. And then finding my meditation is moving towards greater stillness and calmness. Okay? So let's do a meditation on mindfulness, and let's try to see if we can at least put one or more of those 4 factors of mindfulness into practice and see whether it makes sense or not to us. Okay, so I invite you to just adjust your body and find a comfortable posture for yourself to meditate in. You can be sitting upright on the chair, sitting on the floor, on the cushion, or you can also, in the privacy of your own home, choose to lie down on the floor on a good to have some padding on the yoga mats or the rug, or lie on a firm bed, one that really provides support for your body. And I'll guide you through this meditation on mindfulness, exploring at least one or more of the 4 aspects of the RAIN, R-A-I-N. So feel free to close your eyes completely if that helps. Rest your hands and arms on the supports in such a way that you can allow the shoulders to be relaxed. So I'm going to ring the bell to signal the start of this meditation. See if we can become aware of sensations coming through from beneath us at the points of contact between body and seat, body and ground. I invite you to become aware of sensations of solidity, of firmness and stability, qualities we associated with the earth coming through from the supports beneath you, be it the chair, the cushion, the floor. Allow the body to feel that it is resting on such a firm, stable support, and that this posture on such a support is able to keep the body balanced and safe. And this will naturally encourage the body to begin a process of settling down, of loosening up and unwinding, releasing some of those unnecessary tightness and tensions that we may be carrying around in our own body throughout the day. We can allow them to start to unwind. And given time, our body will be able to really settle down comfortably into this posture. And then the next step is to take some time at the beginning of the meditation to invite our attention to come back to the body, to reconnect the mind with the body by becoming aware of the different bodily sensations at the different parts of the body. So let's start at the crown with very little effort, just a light touch. Rest your attention at the crown and see if you can notice any sensations here at the topmost part of your body. Maybe you notice some tingling sensations, a slight feeling of pressure, maybe a sense of warmth or coolness. And it is also perfectly fine if you feel nothing at all at the crown. And let our attention flow downwards so that you become aware of other sensations at the head. For example, flowing forward into the forehead, down the rest of the face. We become aware of sensations at our face. See if you can notice, recognize tension as tension. If you find them at the face, that you may have unconsciously tense up certain facial muscles, maybe those at the forehead, or around your eyes, or at the jaw. See if we can acknowledge such tension as tension, acknowledge the unpleasantness of them as unpleasant. And by recognizing and acknowledging them, see if we can, with patience and gentleness, consciously relax those facial muscles. And notice any positive change. Maybe we can let in a feeling of softness, of ease and comfort, at least into our own face. And if it is true, see if you can allow yourself to enjoy the pleasantness of the softening of those muscles of your face. Enjoy the slight feeling of ease and comfort. Moving downwards, allow attention to be in touch with the neck and throat. Remember, with as little effort as you can manage, you don't have to try harder. And from the neck and throat, let your attention flow into the shoulders as well. Inquire into how your neck and shoulders are feeling today. Inquire, investigate means to give attention, to pay closer attention so that you notice more details, things that you may have missed or are unaware of earlier on. If, like me, you notice tension at the shoulders, tightness that are quite uncomfortable, quite unpleasant, having recognized that, is it possible for us to acknowledge that this is unpleasant? Maybe we can even acknowledge this is what I don't want. Having acknowledged, at least let them be for the moment. Such tension are not released easily. Let's continue down both arms. Gently be aware of sensations at your upper arms, the elbows, the forearms, and finally arriving at both hands so that you're aware of sensations in both hands and fingers as well. Notice warmth or coolness. Notice tightness or relaxation. And now that we are aware of both arms, can we also give permission and just allow them to rest comfortably on their support without the need to tense up the arm muscles in any particular way. Let's invite our attention to come back to the body, to the chest. By now you may have recognized that attention doesn't stay with the body. And when we notice that, see if we can gently nurture a different habit. We invite the attention to come back to the body, come back to the chest. Be aware of sensations here at the chest, at the heart. Notice the movements of the chest as we breathe in and out. See if you can also become aware of sensations at the back, at your upper back. So that we are mindful of both the front and the back of our body. Moving downwards, we contact sensations at the abdomen, sensations at the level of the skin, sensations in the muscle layers, sensation within the abdominal cavity, if there are any. And also notice sensations coming through from our lower back. Throughout this process, at any point of time, you recognize any pleasant feeling arise, however slight they may be, feeling of relaxation, of ease, of comfort. Is it possible for you to acknowledge them as such and nurture them by giving your attention to them, by inviting them into your awareness, and just let them be there. Don't have to do anything to them. Just allow yourself to be aware and to enjoy them while they're here. Let our attention continue down to the pelvis with a light touch. Be aware of sensations here, sensations at the pelvic region where powerful muscles gathered. Sense the sensations at the surface, at the skin, and sensations deep within the pelvic region. Become aware of the weight of the pelvis and the upper body, maybe resting on the support. And see if we can mentally release that weight, allow it to rest comfortably on the support. We let our attention with a light touch to continue down both legs at the same time, briefly touching the hips on both sides, and then moving down the thighs towards the knees. Notice sensations as we go further down towards the ankles, and eventually arriving at both feet, so that we are aware of sensations in both feet, sensations in the toes, just simple sensations, nothing fanciful. And can we give permission? Allow both legs to rest comfortably on their support, and mentally surrender that weight to gravity. So let's rest our body in this posture. Allow it to continue to settle down, to unwind, to release. We practice resting our attention on the suitable support, such as the breath, so that we are aware of the in-breath and the out-breath in whichever way they come to you. See if you can recognize the in-breath as the in-breath and recognize the out-breath as the out-breath. And sooner or later, we will notice some change in what our attention is attending to, change in the breath, change in the objects of our attention. We might be distracted to sounds, to other bodily sensations, or our attention is drawn to thinking, to thoughts of past or future. So we recognize that. We recognize thinking as thinking. We acknowledge it as happening. And we nurture attention by inviting it to come back and rest on the breath. So coming back to the breath sensations in this moment, invite your attention to come back here and now and rest on the breath, becoming aware once again of breath sensations throughout the body. As I said, recognize the in-breath as the in-breath, out-breath as the out-breath. And in so doing, acknowledge whatever experiences might be arising. Acknowledge distraction as distraction. Acknowledge pleasant sensations as pleasant, or unpleasant sensations as unpleasant. And we choose to nurture among all possibilities. We choose to invite our attention and return the energy of our attention, allow it to rest on the breath, allow it to come back and rest here and now in this moment. So attending to the breath, if you are so blessed that you notice some pleasant sensations, could be quite mild, or intriguing arise. With your attention, inquire into how you relate to their pleasant sensations. Are you able to just be with them, enjoy them while they're here? Or do you find yourself developing wanting, craving? And how about the opposite, unpleasant sensations, unwanted experiences? Can you inquire with your attention, notice how you are relating or reacting to them? Are you pushing them away? Are you feeling frustrated, upset? Or are you able to just acknowledge them as unpleasant and just let them be? Or returning your attention once again to the breath. Okay, so welcome back. And that's just a short mindfulness meditation where I sort of now and then point out how we can use our attention and the 4 different ways related to mindfulness. Occasionally, we may practice recognizing and acknowledging or inquiring or nurturing. And by applying mindfulness in such a way, especially in relation to pleasant experiences and unpleasant experiences, it allows us to find a different way to relate to them. At least a way different from what we might most habitually react to them, with craving, attachment to pleasures, aversion, rejection, denial of pain. And just to summarize a little bit what I covered today and invite you to think a little bit more about it is today I'm touch on briefly on the 8 worldly concerns that we are entangled with in this life. 4 pairs of different experiences, 2 different extremes, gain and loss, pleasure and pain, praise and blame, as well as fame and bad reputation. So we begin this process of looking at them. And I'm saying that in relation to these 8 worldly concerns, we have very fixed, habituated reactions to them. And we tend to equate happiness with 4 of them, and unhappiness or suffering with the other 4. And so spend a lot of our energy and time in the various different reactions towards them. Attachment and aversion, to put it simply. And in so doing, instead of contributing to our greater sense of happiness and fulfillment and peace, we might actually find ourselves experiencing this yo-yo kind of reaction, going from one to another, or desperately seeking to get rid of one set of experience and to hold on to another set of experiences. And I'm saying this is not a good recipe for happiness. In fact, the teaching advises us to give up such concerns for this life, give up our preoccupation with them. It doesn't mean to give up a pleasure or gain, or it doesn't mean we can't enjoy it. It just means to give up our habituated reactions to them. Yeah. And so this leads to the question, how would we define happiness in this case? If happiness does not absolutely equal pleasure, how would I define happiness? And what would be the happiness that I would long for or hope to achieve for myself? And is it possible to define happiness in such a way that it allow for all these different changing experiences? That there may be occasion where we experience pleasure, of course we enjoy that, and there are also occasions where we experience pain, and of course many moments of neither of them. And is it possible to define a happiness that allow us to be happy in spite of all these changing feelings? So that is a question I invite you to give some thought to. And subsequent sessions, I will connect this topic of 8 worldly concerns with what I have covered, and how, briefly, how developing a genuine appreciation of the preciousness of our human life can go a long way to help us find a more balanced relationship with these 8 worldly concerns. If we have great confidence and we can really appreciate the unique qualities of our life, and we hold ourselves, our life, in a very positive regard, then we may find that we don't need so much, we don't need to rely so much on, for example, praises and blames in order to define our own worthiness. We may not need to depend so much on others' good or bad opinions in order to decide on who we are, and to acknowledge that we ourselves, we are worthy of of happiness. Whereas when we don't appreciate our own life, or we hold a very negative view towards our life, then we are very susceptible to such outer influence. We look for value and worthiness in other people's eyes. If other people view us positively, then we get very happy. And if we disregard us or view us badly, we are crushed, because we have no inner standards. We have no inner way of finding, how should I put it? Maybe I should stop. I don't know. But there's no inner kind of reassurance of our self-worth. And then we build happiness and unhappiness on other people's opinions, which in the best of time are pretty fickle-minded. People change their mind constantly over different things, sometimes for no good reason at all. And so if that becomes the source of our happiness, we are really setting ourselves up to suffer. So in future session, I would really want to tie these few topics together to see whether we can really see them in a meaningful connection. Okay, I think that's me rambling on for 1.5 hours, and I hope what I said, some of it might be interesting or food for thought. So give them some thoughts if you feel like it, and hope to see you next week. So thank you for your attention, and I wish you all the best and have a good week ahead. So good night.